All right. It's put up or shut up time. So a while back, I made a challenge video to y'all. A bunch of you answered it, and which to make my own start. If given the opportunity, what would we all have done with The Last Jedi? What would we have done in terms of a Star Wars story? Because again, whatever we all come up with, it's better than what Rian Johnson can come up with. It's better than what Kathleen can come up with. It's better than what JJ can come up with. So, and I was happy to see, yeah, a couple people were like inspired, like, yeah, fuck yeah, that's a cool little writing project. But you know, I really do need to put up or shut up. I'm the one that issued it, and I've been here lazy. I've been working, but I haven't been working. I haven't been working. I haven't been working on YouTube. I haven't been doing that. I haven't been doing right by y'all. And I need to come up here and, like, you know, put my money where my mouth is and talk about what would I have done. What I would have done. The only problem with that is I have a tendency to doubt myself, at least in terms of my own creativity, which I probably shouldn't do. I don't think I have a tendency not to believe in myself enough, and I should, because at the end of the day, it's like, whatever, motherfucker, bullshit. Get your ass over there, dude. You know, and get the work done. And like when a challenge comes my way, invariably, little effort and elbow grease, I can meet it, and I know I can. So you know, but I don't know. You know, you're always your own worst critic. But so I don't know if these will sound any good at all. But I've got a couple of ideas of what would have been good for a Star Wars movie. I think, in all honesty, and this might sound a little lazy. A couple of these might sound lazy, but in terms of just kind of spitballing ideas of what would have made a better film, in all honesty, what I would have done for 7, 8, and 9 was I would have just adapted the Timothy Zahn novels. I would have just done Heir to the Empire. The thing is, though, again, I ignored J.J. Abrams when he was all like, oh, the expanded universe isn't canon anymore. I turned into Jeff Johns. I turned to Jeff Johns during the New 52. And I was like, that's cute, Dan. That's cute. I'm just going to keep writing Green Lantern the way I was writing it. Okay? Yeah, fuck you. Fuck your reboot. And for my money, I felt like with The Force Awakens, okay, it's obviously things are different. And that's hard to ignore. But it's like, it's also further in the future. One could argue that the events of the Timothy Zahn novels still took place somewhere in the 30-year gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. And as far as I'm concerned, and this is my feeling about continuity in general, is that the way to handle this, Hollywood, anybody in a creative capacity, is don't tell the fans things that they love are no longer canon. Don't do that. You can actually be completely negligent about this. You can just ignore continuity. But when people ask you, but what is this still in canon? Is this book I love still in canon? Just dismissively say, yeah, whatever, sure it is. Seriously, you can do that. You can be a dick like that as long as you don't say no, it's not canon anymore. As long as you don't do that. As long as people, we as fans want to know that the novels and comics and video games we grew up with still count and still matter. Because you know what? The former license holder felt it was important enough to sell it to us, and we spent our good hard money on it, and we played it, or read it, and enjoyed it, and now you're coming along and telling us, oh yeah, it doesn't count anymore. Fuck you. It's a shitty thing to do. Don't do it. Well before I started doing these videos, I was an avid, like way back in the day, well, not back in the day, a couple years ago. Yeah, there's plenty of things I fucking could bitch and complain about. I was... Part of the reason I think I loved Spoonie so much was that, like, in high school, playing Final Fantasy VIII, I was like, this game's terrible! This is terrible. Like, no, it's not. It's great. Shut up. Shut up. Like, but it's stupid! This Gunblade doesn't make any sense. I felt like a crazy person. And then Noah's like, Final Fantasy VIII sucks. I'm like, oh, I love you. Yeah. So yeah, there's and in terms of comics, like, okay, so before we had the peace and security of SJW Marvel, we had the New 52, and I thought the New 52 was a terrible fucking idea, and I fucking bitched about it here and there, and I still think it's a bad idea. And before that, there was One More Day, and before that, there was the Clone Saga. There's always been like an era of bad comics, and like rife, and other people, arguably much more talented than myself, had basically come in and have already covered that extensively. You know, say what you will about Linkara. I think like Linkara's like a lot of Linkara's videos and criticizing comics that I grew up with that were legitimately bad or disappointing, like the Clone Saga, like One More Day. I think he's done an excellent job on. I may be critical of a lot of his work, but I mean, he's as a comic reviewer, he's, and again, I don't agree with everything he says, but it's like, you know, he's made some really good videos about that before. Yeah, one thing is just don't take away the expanded universe. Don't take that away. So I would just, and that's what people like. That's what people love. So, and what we've always wanted to see is we've always wanted to see that on the big screen. So, you're covering Luke, Han, and Leia again. Just tell the story of Heir to the Empire. Now, of course, the problem is the best time to tell that story would have been 30 years ago. You know, if George had kept going and had made more movies, like after like the novel came out and it was well received, it's like, okay, well, we're just going to adapt this into a movie. That would have been perfect because the actors would still have been young, and you know, it would have, you know, special effects wise, you wouldn't be able to do a lot of what we have today, but it would have been timing wise perfect. The problem is now is that they're much older. So for me, Force Awakens is like, I felt like there was nothing in Force Awakens that necessarily outright said that the expanded universe didn't happen. That's why I ignored JJ's comments. And I still do. I still feel there's value in The Force Awakens and there's value in Rogue One. And like Rogue One's another example too. Rogue One, okay, so the Death Star plans were originally gotten by Kyle Katarn from the Dark Forces Jedi Academy games. Now it was Jyn Erso and her team. And the thing is, fans will do this. Fans, again, Mauler's video talking about like the cult-like attitude of fans have. Fans will go out of their way to write the story for the writer because they love it enough. It shows that we're a little bit brainwashed. Yes, we do that. I've seen people do that for the Final Fantasy games. I think I've done it for the Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII, I've always argued, is a game that is so good because it doesn't tell you everything, but it gives you enough room to figure it out for yourself. But even there, how much of that is genuine? How much is I'm just kind of, you know, connecting the dots, and how much is me just writing the story for them? Another good example of it is the Highlander movies. Like hardcore Highlander fans. Spoonie used to talk about this when he did his Highlander reviews, is that there are people that will like argue that, oh yeah, Highlander 2's in canon. It's totally in canon. And that's the thing, it's like these movies are clearly, I feel like the Highlander movies are very enjoyable, but at the end of the day, the worst thing about them is the continuity, because it makes no fucking sense. And that's the thing, as a fan of these things, you kind of have to do that. So I was ready to do that with The Force Awakens. I was ready to say, like, yeah, somehow the expanded universe happened in there. And the way it was set up, we had all these clues that, like, Rey and Kylo might be brother and sister, might be related somehow. I thought they were the Jedi twins. I thought that's what they were. And I think that's probably what I would have done. I would have had a return of Grand Admiral Thrawn. I would have shown that Thrawn was still a part of the Empire, and a lot of... What I would have done was I basically would have probably made the next movie just basically a love letter to the Timothy Zahn novels. And I would have done like kind of a newer version, maybe even brought Timothy Zahn on board, and done like kind of a far future story having to do with what had gone on there. And what I would have done was I would have basically done like flashback scenes, and if I have to, even like what they did with Leia in Rogue One, where I would CGI'd the actors to make them look younger, and show that basically, and just show, and like I would have characters kind of talk about how, well, you know, years ago this happened. Years ago there was the Jedi twins, and it was like, and I would have probably explained that maybe like Kylo and Rey are in fact the Jedi twins, and that like their memories are erased, or like I would have said that basically Kylo Ren was Anakin Solo, and that's what I would have done. And I would have mined the expanded universe for material to adapt. We would have definitely seen Mara Jade. We would have definitely seen just stuff from the Timothy Zahn novels. I would love to see the Yu Sung Vaughn. I think that might be an interesting like third or maybe fourth movie. Is like do like at least a two-parter. Do like a 3-act where we're dealing with Sith again, where we're dealing with maybe like a clone of Palpatine, bring Ian McDermott back. You know, deal with Thrawn. I think for Thrawn, Wayne Pygram of Farscape fame would be perfect for it. Wayne Pygram actually was in the prequels as a young Grand Moff Tarkin. And for those of you who are familiar with Farscape, those of you who are not, or you know, Farscape for those of you not familiar, is a really awesome science fiction show done by by the Jim Henson Company. And it's basically, if you want something that feels like Star Wars, that feels like the best of Star Wars and Star Trek put together, you know, Farscape. Farscape is great. Premise being that astronaut John Crichton, played by Ben Browder, does an experimental mission where he slingshots himself off the moon, goes through a wormhole, finds himself at the other end of the universe, and winds up on board of a ship full of escaped alien prisoners. And they're fleeing this dictator-like organization of the Peacekeepers, and they're just trying to get home. And they wind up becoming this family of just kind of this ragtag group of crazy aliens, all either practical effect creature work and costumes, or practical effects like puppets. And they go on a big crazy adventure throughout outer space. You've had standalone episodes, although kind of like an Alien Week. You'll have awesome arc stories dealing with some of their major villains like Scorpius and Krace. And it's a really excellent show. And one of the hallmark characters in it is one of the major villains of the show, and sometimes hero, Scorpius, the Scarran-Sebastian hybrid, who is trying to get the wormhole technology from John Crichton's head. He's played by Wayne Pegram. He does a masterful job. And another YouTuber, he's kind of just, I think, doing things on his own website now, because he just kind of posts like videos he knows won't get taken down on YouTube. But SF Debris, who I'd argue is is hands down the best science fiction reviewer on the internet today. A guy, if you haven't seen his videos, go check out sfdebris.com. Check out his Star Trek reviews. He reviews a bunch of stuff. He's fantastic. And especially if you love Star Trek, watch this guy's videos. If you love Star Trek so much that if you love Star Trek, you know the good buffs about Star Trek, the bad about Star Trek. If you like to poke fun at Threshold and A Night in Sick Bay, check out SF Debris. He's excellent. And he actually compared Scorpius to Grand Admiral Thrawn. And so I think Wayne Pegram would be the perfect person to play Grand Admiral Thrawn. I think that would a live action version of that would be excellent. I was never terribly impressed with Snoke in The Force Awakens. So what I probably would have done was I probably would have made what I thought would have been interesting would have been actually like showing that Snoke is one of many of a species. I'm with the nostalgia critic on this. I think that Snoke should have been a giant. It's like you went to the trouble of, I get it, it's a hologram. Fuck you. Ever since like Plinkett talked about how, like, you know, well, what if Darth Tyrannus was like a 20-foot tall Gorgon with a lightsaber, right? Ever since he said that, I was like, yeah, what if he was a 40-foot tall Gorgon with a lightsaber? That'd be really cool and creative, especially since we're in this awesome universe with crazy aliens. Why not we do that? I think it would have been neat to see that he's like from a race of aliens that are gigantic, and I get his makeup is, the CGI work on him suggests that he's an old man. I thought it would have been interesting, but the thing is, though, he really, and it may just be that he's a CGI creature, he really doesn't look human. And I thought it would be interesting to show that he's old, but he's an alien. And one thing and this is the only credit I will ever give Snoke, is Snoke reminds me of the Talosians from Star Trek, which is a high compliment, one that he is not worthy of. And he kind of like kind of the big roundish gray alien head, and kind of gaunt body. It's like, you know, sitting in a chair all the time, using powers from a distance and not really engaging. It reminds me of the Talosians, reminds me of the psychic aliens who are too weak to like hold stuff themselves. I think it would have been interesting if they were like this race of giants, of these giant aliens that are naturally in tune with the Force, in particular the dark side. And maybe the idea is that the First Order came from is essentially it's been restarted by Palpatine. I would have had someone explain that basically, like, look, the Empire never left. The Empire never went away. The Empire was defeated and the Republic was rebuilt, and as a result, the Empire became the minority. They became, much like in the novels, they became a rogue force throughout the galaxy that was trying to regain their power. But they were on the out at that time. They were basically a much smaller. They were basically like terrorists. They were basically like a terrorist force, but they had better technology and they had spaceships and things like that. They were still a threat that needed to be dealt with, and they kept on making efforts to basically rebuild and continue to menace this new republic that's being formed. But they were definitively defeated in the Return of the Jedi. I would have had someone explain that. I would have had someone explain that, like, and part of what brought them back was like maybe this race of aliens, Snoke's people, cloned Palpatine and brought him back, brought his clone back, and they were agents of his. And they recognized that he's the only one that can keep this together. He would need to continue this. The idea of Snoke being plagued as the wise, I think, actually is a good idea, and would have actually made the character compelling. As he is now, he's not very compelling at all. That's the thing. One of the things that made me happy in the Last Jedi was when he died. I know it pissed everybody else off, and I feel ya, but to me, Snoke was always garbage. I was never impressed with Snoke. So I mean, Another thing would be interesting to do, I think, was again, my mentality for this is for the fans, and even if like doing I think like maybe another idea essentially would be if we can't adopt the Timothy Zahn novels exactly, due to the age of the cast, what I would do is I would basically do a new story in line with the expanded universe and what's been previously established, and basically have like, if you got characters like Rey or Finn, I would have like Leia or Luke or Han explain to them about the history, and when they do, they go into a flashback, and you see like clips, and like I would show like bits and pieces. I would like show like them at war with the Yuzong Vong, and I would have shown like the return of, I would have shown like flashbacks of things that could only have taken place in the novels in an earlier time, and they would have been like a CGI'd version of Harrison Ford, and a CGI'd version, much like the de-aging effects that you saw like in X-Men 3 with Xavier and Magneto. I would have done that just for a minute because we have to, and like little references to show that this happened, and that would set up. I would basically do adventures based off of those books, but in a modern time, referencing those conflicts. The other thing I think would be interesting to do is, or actually, what I think would be interesting as well is, I think it's actually very interesting, although they're not always successful. I found the fact that like DC Comics a lot of their direct-to-DVD movies are pretty good. At least some of the older ones are. In particular, I'm thinking of like Under the Red Hood, or Justice League Frontier. And then, of course, there's the bad ones like The Killing Joke, where The Killing Joke is not a very good adaptation. Although, again, Mark, Kevin, you did a great job. But the problem with that is, of course, like, there's that whole Batgirl storyline tacked on in the beginning that doesn't really belong there. There's a lot of problems with that film. But I think it would be, what would probably work is, instead of maybe not doing a full feature, but do like a direct-to-DVD animated feature. And what you could do that way is you actually could adapt the Timothy Zahn novels, you could adapt a lot of the expanded universe books that way, by basically bringing in Mark Hamill as a voice actor. He's already a voice actor. If they had done it quick, they could have brought in Carrie Fisher as a voice actor before she passed away. And of course, there's no way we could have predicted that. I don't know who would have to perform oral sex on Harrison Ford to keep him actually in these films, but if perhaps somehow it would be possible to convince him to do more than one Star Wars project, that would be wonderful. I mean, this is my fantasy here. This is my, in a perfect world where I could somehow convince him to keep coming back, that'd be great. I mean, he might insist, no, kill me off. All right, fine. But in that instance, if I were to, what I think would be a cool idea would be to do little short animated vignettes, or little short animated direct-to-DVD movies that are straight-up adaptations from the expanded universe. Just do, and with, whatever voice actors you can bring back Billy D. Williams as Lando, just any actors that are still alive that can actually, but maybe too old to do this in live action, bring them back and have them act as voice actors for these things. And you could do an adaptation of Heir to the Empire. You could do an adaptation of a lot of the novels or the comics. And that would be really cool. And that way you could have your cake and eat it too, while as the new films are kind of like a continuation of that. And you could even bring in your new characters like Rey, who's just kind of like, treat Rey like Rey and Finn as like just kind of a viewpoint character. It's like, have like Luke say, oh, well, you're new to this. You're new to the conflict. Well, let me tell you what happened after we defeated the Empire. This is, we set up this republic and this happened, and then this hot Sith lady tried to kill me and she worked for the Empire. Her name was Mara Jade. And, you go from there. And you start referencing things like that. Other ideas I had was, let's take other classic storylines that took place during the saga or before it and make movies about them. So essentially, this is kind of like their Rogue One spin-off movie idea. But do things people actually fucking want to see, like what I would like to see. Shadows of the Empire. Much like how Infinity War had me absolutely ecstatic as I was reading the comic in high school. and me and my buddies were talking about it, and we're like wanting this to be a movie, but worrying it would never happen. Something I've always wanted to see as a movie would be Shadows of the Empire. That story is fucking awesome. I'm not 100% sure how to do it, but this is my fantasy, so let's just do it. Like, you could get like someone. Okay, at this point, especially after seeing him as Cable and as Thanos, Josh Brolin as Dash Rendar. Josh Brolin as Dash Rendar as the badass bounty hunter who's out to go rescue Han Solo from Jabba the Hutt. The entire movie centers around him with cameos from Luke and Leia. We get to see Prince Shizor on the screen for the first time. We get to see Boba Fett. We get to see IG-88, and the whole movie is just a big, awesome action set piece, and it's really freaking awesome. Other things we could have actually adapted and done a good job with. I would love to see a movie of the Dark Forces series. So as much as, even though I do like Rogue One, again, Rogue One is one of those movies where I fan theory it. It's like, I do fan theory it. It's like, to me, I like Rogue One enough. It's like, yeah, I don't mind this being canon, but like maybe they didn't get the whole Death Star plans. Maybe it was like in 2 parts, and Jen Erso got one version, and then like Kyle Katarn got the other version elsewhere, and he sent that to Mon Mothma, and then she sent that to Leia, and then like when Leia eventually arrives at the base of A New Hope, they had like the completed Death Star plans. Long and short of it, I'd like to see a Darth Forces movie. I'd like to see maybe a whole Darth Forces series starring Kyle Katarn and his adventures, and then leading into a Jedi Academy series. I would love to see that adapted. I would love to see adaptations of the Knights of the Old Republic games. I would love to see the story of Revan. You'd have a great opportunity to cast Cartho Nassi, to Bastila. I keep forgetting the name of the fucking robot. The robot's fucking the badass, like, Terminator robot, the assassin droid. I keep on spacing on his fucking name. I'm sorry. I'm ashamed of myself. I am. That could be really cool. And other things too is like we could do like Tales of the Jedi stories like way back, or even like, again, I think animated, you could do a lot of stories that took place in between the movies. Because there were a series of comics of just like, seriously, take those old comics, those really old comics, which were done in between the movies about what Luke and Han and Leia were doing in between. Not to mention, I think his name is Jake Solo. No, me and Josh were just talking about this today. But there's one comic that has to deal with like Luke's ancestor who's like a drug addict, and it's like that would have been really cool to see. I would like basically just anything in expanded universe. It was like would be excellent to see in movie form and expanded upon. They're talking about doing like an Ahsoka movie, but it was like, yeah, we could have taken more stuff from the Clone Wars and kind of expanded on characters like Ahsoka Tano and whatnot. We could have done things like that. Let's see, more original ideas. So let's say I have to work with the well, okay, let me start with the lazy explanation, or the lazy idea right at the bat. Hire Daniel Baxter. I've said this before. Hire Daniel Baxter and just make his how the Last Jedi should have ended canon. Just or furthermore, just prolong it to feature length. Seriously, like with just like, but take out the stuff that's obviously just a joke, like people get like Mary Poppins, Leia sucking everybody in outer space. But yeah, have Holdo get put in her place, called out for the idiot and incompetent she is, or maybe even reveal that Holdo's like a spy and was trying to get everybody killed. Have Admiral Akbar go out like a hero, like a badass, and maybe even expand on that a little bit. Like make Admiral Akbar like take the original characters that we know and love and actually give them something to do. Part of what I like about Force Awakens is I feel like Chewie has like one of the best moments in the movie, like when Han Solo dies and Chewie just like Rah! And just blasts Kylo Ren. It was like that was awesome. I was feeling for Chewie. I was right there with Chewie. I was like, I was in tears. Feeling for him. I felt like Chewie got good development there, and then he goes from that to I don't know what to do with all these porgs. Oh no, porgs! Fuck that shit. Yeah, give them good development. Like Admiral Akbar has always been a minor character anyway. Expand him before he goes out. Give him and play up. You know what this is? You know what this is? Play that joke up for all it is and make it fucking pimp and badass. Go for it. There's an idea. Just flat out adapt the how it should have ended into a fucking movie. You know what? I owe you all a drink. In 10 years in the future, if they ever actually do that, if they ever actually adapt the how it should have ended episode into a feature length movie. Because you know what? Again, I was worried, oh, we'll never see Infinity War, and here we are. We got Infinity War, man, and it's great. So it could happen. Anything could happen. The world is a beautiful place, full of possibilities. If I were writing The Last Jedi, and what would and I had to deal with what happened at the end of The Force Awakens, and I had to adapt that. Well, okay, I've already said this before, but I would have made the expanded universe canon again. But if I was doing the next chapter, I wouldn't have done anything having to do with like the stupid chase, the stupid fucking like the whole let's chase them in outer space thing. I probably would have I mean, like, I would have like made it like so that, like a substantial amount of time had passed for everybody. I would not have cut to like Luke tossing the lightsaber over his shoulder. I would not have like it would have like several months, maybe a year. I would have done what George did in the first place, where some substantial amount of time has passed between Episode 4 and Episode 5. I would have basically had it so that maybe a year's passed. And here's the thing: if you do that, like you could actually have your cake and eat it too with Rey. You could actually do that because, again, and I've argued this before. I feel like the original characters introduced in The Force Awakens are basically Star Wars D20 characters that JJ and his friends are playing. $10 Poe is played by Simon Pegg. Just $10. $10 to, I have a feeling, but and basically whoever is the player playing Rey pick the Jedi class, and that class is broken. That class makes paladins from Dungeons & Dragons look like garbage. It's like, so yeah, you play that class, you start off with fucking crazy ass force powers, you start off using a lightsaber, wrecking everybody's shit, and the poor fucking fighter pilot's like, I can't do anything unless we're in space. And the soldier's like, I can shoot shit, I can cleave through everybody with my fucking lightsaber and use force powers, and I'm awesome, and like, yeah! And it's just like, and like, as Spoonie would have said, all Jedi or no Jedi. But, yeah, so, that's what, that's essentially how it feels. So I feel like that's the thing, they wanted Rey. I'm not refuting the argument that she's a Mary Sue, but I think what part of the reason for that was they wanted Rey to be a Jedi. And they wanted her to be a Jedi fast. They wanted her to have the ability to use the Force quickly, to be able to do all the shit. The telekinesis, the the skill of the lightsaber, the mind tricks, all that. They wanted it quickly. They also had a feminist agenda, and they couldn't have a woman be vulnerable. That's why she had to, she was guaranteed to win all of her fights, and that's why Kathleen's pushing her stupid fucking agenda. That's present too. But again, whether that's going on behind the scenes or not, I can ignore it if the story's good enough. If the story's good enough, I won't fucking care what your agenda is. And I will root for her if you execute her well. If you show her well, it works out. So what you could have done is basically, what we could have done is we could have had Luke train her off screen. Now, I think a lot of people probably would have wanted to see her train, but here's the thing. I feel like a lot of this mindset, and a lot of kind of the modern movie mindset in terms of blockbusters is, and I think it shows in The Last Jedi, is they just keep throwing shit at the screen. They want to show it's spectacle. It's spectacle. People want to see explosions and stuff like that, and crazy and cool shit. So you could make the case. I don't necessarily agree with it, but you could make the case that the training scene with Yoda in Empire Strikes Back probably wouldn't work today because, well, that's boring. That's sitting down talking. And that's bullshit. It's bullshit. It works because it's telling a story. It's actually giving you room to breathe in between the action, which is what's going on. The action is really going on with Han and Leia and Chewie running away from the Empire. But to make everybody happy, let's start off with Episode 8. Kind of like how we did in Empire, where all of a sudden Luke's on a snow planet, and we don't know what's happened in between Episode 4 and Episode 5. Let's do that. Let's cut to let's actually establish that there's Finn is actually working with the Resistance now with Poe. They have an established friendship, and they're on some other planet. Let's do what Lucas did and have a different environment we've never seen before. I'm not sure what to pick though, because he kind of did everything. But let's let's actually, or maybe we could revisit something we've seen before. Also, let's revisit that giant planet with the giant mushrooms and the giant flowers that was seen where Aya Sakula died in Revenge of the Sith. Let's go there. Let's do that. Let's do that planet. Because we were barely there. We were only there for a minute. And we didn't get to explore that much. So the rebels are hanging out, are hiding out there, or like the Republic has a fortified base there. I would have actually established that the Republic is still around, and that the real thing that Leia and Mon Mothma, who for my movie, she's still alive. I'm gonna say Mon Mothma's still alive, and is maybe just kind of an older woman, and I would have had her instead of Holdo. And I would have established that basically the concern is now we've had the Republic for a long time, but the First Order, we've been fighting them for a while. The First Order is essentially the Empire reborn, and they've grown in power to the point where this is like an intergalactic. This is like two feuding star systems. This is like, at this point, the Empire has regrown to the point where it's taken over like essentially half the galaxy, and the other half is trying to fend off the invasion. And there's many worlds that are distant from it and are safe and feel like they're kind of secure from it, or people that are non-aligned whatsoever, like the Hutts, who are still just kind of like oh, we don't give a shit. We're playing both sides. They're still non-aligned worlds, but basically, the Empire is coming back, and they are a force to be reckoned with. And I would have started out with them doing something there, something on that planet. Either they have a base there, and if we want to ape Empire Strikes Back, we'd have the Empire attack full force, or we could show that basically we could show that Finn and Poe are on a mission together. We could because that's copying Empire too much. That's the problem. We tried to copy Empire too much in this film. Let's have them on a mission, and maybe the mission that they're in involves, hey, we need to go to that island planet that Rey's on. It's like, well, and then Finn's like, oh man, Rey, I haven't thought about her in a while, man. I miss her. We haven't seen her in she's been there. Well, she's been training there for having some expeditions. She's been training there for like 6 months or so. It's like something to that effect. And when we catch up to Rey and Luke are already friends. They already have a rapport with one another, and she's trained. And he basically is pointing out that, wow, I don't know what your deal is, but you're a prodigy. You're really good. You can have your cake and eat it too. There's your Mary, and she'd still probably be considered a Mary Sue at that point. But you have an explanation. She was trained off screen and was like, you taught me so much about the Force and whatnot. And let Mark do what he wants to do. Let Mark, it basically point out that it's like essentially the like Finn and Poe have got to go pick up Rey and Mark and Luke Skywalker, specifically because they're Rey achieved what she wanted to do in The Force Awakens. She successfully let Luke know, we need you, and it's like, we didn't know where you are, but we need your help. And he answered, and it's like, all right, fine. And then as for the reason for his isolation, we find that out during the course of the film. It's like he starts telling her more. We start kind of going through backstory, but basically he maybe he is reluctant. Like, the idea of it's recycled. It's recycled from Star Wars, and again, people like Mahler have pointed out that it's basically Star Wars essentially plagiarized itself. But one thing that works about Star Wars is the hero's journey and the refusal of the call. You could do a concept that basically Luke doesn't want to leave. That maybe Luke is a little depressed. That maybe something did happen and he doesn't want to carry on. Maybe not that not something to the effect of, oh, I tried to murder my nephew and he wound up becoming a monster that destroys the universe. Maybe just the fact that he trained him and he failed him. He didn't see him. He thought everything was fine. He didn't see him turn to the dark side. And maybe he's communing with this Force ghost and wondering, like talking to Obi-Wan, like, how come? Why didn't you see what happened to you? Why didn't you see what happened to my father? Like, Yoda, what? I want to know more about that. Maybe you can commune with the Force ghost about that, and how it, and maybe a lesson of it, like, sometimes when you do everything right, it still doesn't work out. I would have shown that. I would have kept Luke a good guy, and maybe a little depressed because of what's going on, and then maybe through Rey through this new student, he kind of finds himself again. And but basically, upon going to this planet, they pick up. Yeah, he's been training her. He's been training her. She's ready, and he's come. And she convinces. He almost doesn't come, and then finally turns around and is like, "Yeah, I'm coming." And Mark gets to do what Harrison did in the last film. He gets to run around the universe. He gets to fight bad guys. He gets to kick ass, and he's good to go. And we don't kill him in the movie. We don't. And if we do kill him, he goes down fighting, he goes down a hero, he goes down. What I would have done with Luke, in all honesty, is I would have done Mark Hamill the honor of letting Luke Skywalker grow up to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. I would have shown that, like, I mean, he's already got the beard for it. He's already got the hair for it. I would have basically shown that an older Luke Skywalker turned out just like that man who was an inspiration to him, just like Obi-Wan, just like his master. And he's grown with wisdom. He's grown wise. And even the Force ghost of Obi-Wan is proud of the man that he's become. And he, in many ways, he's emulating, you know, the person that his mentor, the man that means the most to him. And so if it came down to him dying, I would have had him die much in the same way that Obi-Wan did. I would have had him in this situation where maybe he's cornered by Kylo or some other Sith. I would have thrown more Sith in here too. I would have gotten a little creative with the Siths. I would have while we're bringing stuff back, you know who I think would be great to come back? Darth fucking Maul. Because yeah, guess what, people? I like Phantom Menace. You know why? Darth fucking Maul. I got to meet Ray Park at Pensacon. Ray Park is fucking awesome. He kicks ass. And yeah, you know, Ray Park, Darth Maul came back in the expanded universe with cybernetic legs, and I would have shown that basically, okay, we're all concerned. What's the deal with the Knights of Ren? Okay, let's show the Knights of Ren. Let's show what the Knights of Ren are. The Knights of Ren are a revived Sith, a revised and reformed Sith, who perhaps reject the idea of the rule of two, and want to go back to the old ways of the Sith of the old Republic, the Sith that reveres strength, and that only cut down their superior if the superior shows weakness. A Sith that, if you want to play with the ideas of good and evil and like who's better or worse, you could have actually shown sympathetic Sith lords, Sith that basically revere power and passion and have seen a dark side to what the Jedi are capable of. We could have a whole team of that. We could have had maybe a couple of, you know, a few famous Sith here or there. You could have shown like a cybernetic Darth Maul, who's still around, maybe with like some wrinkles showing his age. You'd have shown there's that one hot red Twi'lek girl from the story where Luke's nephew is a drug addict in the far future and a reluctant Jedi. Show like a young version of her, and like this is kind of where she got her start. Essentially, you could do something like that. You could have done a whole mess of things. You could have shown like maybe another like cyborg, kind of like Grievous, you know, like something that's like, or like even a droid that maybe can't fully, maybe, or like something like Grievous, like where Grievous is a cyborg who knows the Jedi techniques but can't use the Force. Okay, why don't we go a little further? Why don't we show something, an entity similar to Grievous that can use the dark side, that can, regardless of the fact that he's no longer organic, can actually tap into the Force. Show that again, the Force is everywhere. And even droids can tap into it. That'd be an interesting idea. That'd be an interesting idea to play with. Maybe even one of them's a young Sung Wong. Maybe a spy. You know, basically kind of essentially a shadow, essentially an agent a young Sung Wong that basically can use the Force, that can use the dark side, but is also an advanced scouting party of an evasion force yet to come. So, and I would have just had them go on an adventure. I would have them go on an adventure and have some fun, and like you could do a lot of the stuff that's you could argue is shallow or things like that. But the certain things that work, I feel, at least on some level, in The Last Jedi. Like I kind of liked the Dreadnought fight. I liked Poe running around blowing up the Dreadnought. You know, I think the one thing that I feel is salvageable from The Last Jedi is Oscar Isaac's as Poe Dameron. I don't know. I think maybe I just have like some weird kind of man crush on him. I don't know what it is. But I think, like, you know, I think Poe is the one person in the movie who I think is acting appropriately. He's the one person who's being a hero and who's actually, he's the voice of the audience. He's the one person acting with some sense, whereas no one else is acting sensibly. No one else is acting in a way that you can get behind. People are at least doing with him. People are at least getting behind him. Poe got to actually, unfortunately, okay, for better or for worse, Poe got to do something in Last Jedi. It's just, all it was being, you know, basically talked down to by this miserable tumblerina bitch. That, you know, but at the end of the day, he staged a mutiny. He was a character. He did, it would have been perfect. He basically showed the kind of man he is, who's a good man, who's practical, who's military, and doesn't take bullshit, and was a better and more kind. Poe Dameron should have been the leader once Leia was taken out of commission. And I think that like you could keep on showing Poe as a badass and keep him like that. And even okay, you want to do this whole he's a hotshot pilot thing? Okay, yeah, well, fine. Then let's make him like Starbuck from the original Battlestar Galactica, not the one that actually both, not necessarily the newer one that's gotten really popular and people like, but even then, the female Starbuck in that show is also kind of a hotshot, no nonsense pilot who doesn't plays by her own rules, no respect for authority. Play it if you want. Go full Starbuck on Poe Dameron. That would be fucking cool. I'd be down with that. Another expanded universe thing we could make movies about: the Rogue Squadron, X-Wing Rogue Squadron series. Yeah, let's make a movie starring Wedge Antilles. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Yeah. Like, like show the continued adventure of the X-Wing pilots and the missions they go on, stuff like that. That would have been a fucking awesome movie. That'd be a great thing. People forget about the Rogue Squadron games. The Rogue Squadron games are fucking awesome, man. Yeah, Rogue Squadron, definitely. Fuck yeah. Or if you really want to be trolly, we could do like an Ewoks movie. The Ewoks movies are cheesy, but I kind of enjoyed them for what they were. Yeah, you do stuff like that. What else happened? Yeah. So that's I would have just done a fun adventure with these characters, and just yeah, that's what I would have done. You could have done a couple of the scenes. Like I would have done away with the stupid bombers. Like the bombers would have been fine if they'd moved faster or had better armament. Like there's a lot of things about the bombers. I think the people hate on the bombers because there's so much else wrong with this movie that makes people angry, that it makes people go back through the movie and like, hey, wait a fucking minute, and you examine every single fucking thing, including the scene destroying the Dreadnought, and it's like, you could pick this shit apart too, and it's like, yeah, and again, like that whole thing was basically Rian Johnson that wanted to do some kind of World War II homage, regardless of the fact that this is space combat, and you need to adapt it. And there's simple things. Establish that there's a force field underneath the damn thing that keeps air in but doesn't keep objects out. Just do it. Establish that the bombs are magnetized. And don't make them garbage. I would basically make the bomb, and again, there's no reason why those couldn't have just been regular old Y-Wings. And just reveal that, oh, Y-Wings can do this, by the way, and have them drop those bomb mines and stuff like that, and have them move, have them do something. Have some enjoyable and satisfying space combat. Let's see. Other blatant exploding things that were somewhat enjoyable in this movie. Really, that's it. Really, the first fight with the Dreadnought is like the only good thing. I honestly feel like the whole ramming the ship with from Lightspeed is overrated, especially because again I've seen it from other places. I've seen it better. I've seen it done. It's a tactic in Star Trek. That's basically the premise of the Picard maneuver. The Picard maneuver is you go to warp. You go to warp like when you're like just like 100 kilometers away from a ship, which could conceivably which has the risk of you colliding in the ship and you both exploding and dying. And then you go to warp right when you're about to hit the ship. You fire a couple photon breezes and you warp away in another direction, and you wind up like launching photon torpedoes at like faster than light speeds right into a ship, and you could just destroy a ship instantly or completely disable a ship that way. So there you go. That's one version. Also from Star Trek, when dealing with Borg cubes, a lot of times the strategy that comes up is ram the cube, because the fucking Borg adapt to everything. So like, okay, can you adapt to me ramming my ship into you as hard as I possibly can? Because I'm gonna do it. If we're all gonna, never put Worf in charge of a fucking starship. Never make him your captain, because he's like, oh, today's a good day to die. And I pity the poor botanist sitting next to him who didn't want to fucking fight killer cyborgs. So that becomes a tactic. And that, again, Farscape, Talon Starburst, when Krace and Talon starburst inside the Peacekeeper command carrier to destroy it. There you go. And even something else that's not necessarily using the faster-than-light technology, but just the wormhole weapons. The time when John Crichton destroyed an entire Scarran Dreadnought by creating a wormhole that pulled a chunk of a sun at it and rammed the Dreadnought with it. And Stock's like, I have no prayer for that. Fucking badass. I've seen it elsewhere. I watch science fiction. Not to mention, like, then there's another one from Star Trek Voyager. You got the planet-busting missile from that B'Elanna Torres made in Voyager that was meant to blow up Cardassian Prime, but missed Cardassian Prime and just kept going in the Delta Quadrant. It's going to go blow up some peaceful planet, so she's got to go disable it. That thing's got a warp engine on it. It's like there you go. So yeah, like if nothing else, it's just all that did was basically make us realize it's like okay, you fuckers should be building like missiles with hyperdrive engines on them. It's like that's what you should be doing. It's like you know it's I feel like that scene is very much overrated. I kind of like I like the Phasma Finn fight, all 3 minutes of it. It's like maybe if you actually did something with Phasma, that would have been cool. What else? What else? What else? I kind of hate admitting to this, but I kind of liked Canto Bite initially. You know, and the reason why was I was like, okay, where are you going with this? And it was like, you know, this is all in the service of getting this code breaker. So when they steal the horse beast and they're rampaging through the city, it's like, okay, this is kind of fun. This is kind of a fun little wacky adventure. Yeah, preschool flashbacks, but I kind of like the prequel. So Canto Bite falls apart to me once you realize that it's completely pointless, that it accomplishes nothing. And I actually really didn't like the fight on Crate. I liked looking at the Imperial Walkers because they look cool. And I always like seeing the TIE Fighters because they look cool. But basically, the problem with that is that the Rebels have... Oh, and even the Death Star cannon thing was kind of neat. My problem with... again, visually the movie is very beautiful in spite of its problems. But my biggest problem is that, like, the reason why that fight sucks is not only is it a Hoth ripoff, but basically, I fucking hate those speeders they're driving around in. Those speeders are the biggest load of garbage ever, and I think that it's kind of the point. They're trying to show how, like, you know... how useless their tech is, how just incompetent and ineffective it is. And as a result, it's like, it's an unsatisfying... Okay, on the one hand, it's an unsatisfying fight. It's just like those things... I don't think those things even have blasters on them. Or nothing effective. It's like they can't do... Like, it's like, what's the plan here? What can these things do? They would have been better off using the speeders from Return of the Jedi, which are strictly designed for jungle, not for open warfare charging against artillery units. Not those things were not meant for that, and they would have been cut down and decimated. But they would have been better off. They would have been better off throwing rocks at those fucking things, you know. And that's what it boils down to. So I really actually don't like that fight because it's just like this is what the fuck are they doing? And they have to hit the salt, so they shoot up the red and the salt, and it's like fuck this shit, you know. So I would have actually I would just have them go on adventures. I would have them go on adventures, and we could have shown some fun action scenes that have explosions and maybe don't have a whole point to them, but it would just be fun. Just be fun. Have them run into some weird aliens here or there, and just go from there, That would be my plan. It was like and it was as for solving the mysteries, I would have given clues as to Rey's parentage. I probably would have fallen back on just her being one of the Skywalker twins or one of the Jedi twins. But if it had to be someone different than that, I would have dropped some clues. I liked one of the ideas Mauler had that basically like that he suggested that basically it could be that like her father was a bounty hunter and a bad guy, but gets involved because he realizes his daughter's involved, or maybe comes into conflict with her. How about her being like her father being like a Mandalorian, like Boba Fett? So we could have had Mandalorians and thing. That would have been kind of cool. The other idea Mauler had was the idea of her being like her father's a drug addict and she's, you can get the same message that basically you can't define yourself through your parents. You got to find your own way. That could have worked too. Okay. And final idea. This is a bad one. You're gonna hate it. You're gonna fucking hate this. You're gonna hate this idea. I don't care. First of all, this would not necessarily have anything to do with The Force Awakens. It would not necessarily be a sequel to Force Awakens, but it's my final idea for what to do with a Star Wars movie, other than what Rian Johnson did. You're going to hate this. Cross it over with the MCU. Yeah, I'm sorry. I said it. It's like okay, so my idea is basically Patton Oswalt's idea from that one episode of Parks and Rec, where it's like, and then all of a sudden Thanos shows up, and then we turn Chewbacca dies, but he gets his head grafted onto a giant spider robot, and then like Tony Stark and the Guardians of the Galaxy meet Luke Skywalker, and like, okay, I'm only half joking. I would have, yeah, I'm a crossover whore, so we could have actually, I would have, if like you already got the licenses to it. It's like first of all, I would have focused. You could have had characters like Rey and Poe and Finn in there, if you wanted to, and give them some development. But more or less, I would basically make sure you have the older characters in it. You have Luke, Han, and Leia. And I would have done an episode, an adventure where they meet the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's like, guess what? You're part of the Marvel universe now. It's like, or like the Marvel universe is connected to the Star Wars universe, or it's like literally, yeah, it's like from a galaxy far, far away in the Marvel universe, and we do some kind of crazy crossover adventure where we're dealing with like Thanos' forces or some kind of obscure, some random the villain of the week, from Marvel who's actually working with the Empire. You can do something fun like that. Or cross it over with other things that are completely inappropriate. Like maybe have the Star Wars characters go to Earth, and it's around, I don't know, the 1950s, 1960s, and there's a hat-wearing, whip-wielding adventurer that winds up seeing the spaceship go down. Dun-da-da-da! Dun-da-da! Indiana Jones meets Star Wars. Why the fuck not? Hell, go even a little further. Actually have E.T. Actually have E.T. show up, like literally, like E.T. show up and be a major character in a Star Wars movie. Actually, like, cross them over, and the fun of these ideas of the movies, as horrible as this sounds to some of you, I'm sure it does. The fun of this would be just playing with the idea of the classic Star Wars characters we know and love, interacting with other movie characters that we know and love, and going on an adventure, and just like a crossover comic book. That's basically what it would be. And you could do this with a number of different franchises. You could do this with other, you could do this with other Disney films if you want. You could do this with, that to me would be a bit of a stretch, but why not? Fuck it. You can cross over Beauty and the Beast for all I care. As weird as that would be, something else that Disney has the license to. Yeah, that's probably the worst idea. But it was like, yeah, I think it might be fun. It's like, again, this would be an opportunity, like, oh, Rian Johnson's talking about how, I've been a fan since I was a kid. Okay, well, prove it, asshole. You know what I did when I was a fan? I was a fan. I was a kid. I would take my little Ninja Turtle characters and my little Luke Skywalker and my little Wolverine, and I'd tell stories where they would interact with each other. This is an opportunity we get the rights to both characters. So why not fucking do it? Why not fucking do it? If you do it right, if you don't make it total horseshit, if you make it enjoyable for someone, it'll at least be a little bit successful. It may not even be the biggest success, but like it might even make it into the cult classic area. And if you do it well enough, again, Marvel's already proven that basically they can do great things with stuff that that were long shots. Guardian of the Galaxy was a long shot. Ant-Man was a long shot. I had my doubts about Guardian of the Galaxy before it came out. I had my doubts about Ant-Man, and I'm a huge Marvel fan. I'm a huge comic book fan. I was like, I don't know if Ant-Man's gonna work. Ant-Man fucking worked. Ant-Man was great. Guardians of the Galaxy really blew everybody away. The Guardians of the Galaxy were an obscure comic book character prior to the movie coming out. They were characters that you had to be a comic book fan to know they even existed. They were characters people didn't know who Drax were. People didn't know who Star-Lord was. People knew who Rocket Raccoon was from Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and that's about it. That's it. But now they are some of the biggest characters ever. People all over the world know who the Guardians are, and they love them because they took a chance and they made a good movie. So, if you do it right, if you stick to telling good storytelling, you could make any concept work. So, on the subject of all this, I'm actually interested in checking out the fan edits of The Last Jedi. I haven't done it yet, and at some point I think I should. I think I might be interested by what I see. But yeah, so this is my answer to my own challenge. This is what I got for story ideas. The rest of you out there, hey, dude, submit. Fucking put your links, make your own videos on this. Put your links in the comment section. Abu Nas CS reviews, SE reviews. I'm sorry. Dude, yeah, guys, take your time on it. Yeah, Abu Nas SE reviews, do a video. Let me know what your plan is. What you would do for a Star Wars story. I really appreciate you commenting on it. And it's like, yeah, dude, let me know. I think it'll be an awesome freaking video. And dude, I need shit to watch while I'm at work. Come on, come on. I just hearing your idea for a Star Wars movie would just put a smile on my face. So again, this is Dreadpirate. Catch y'all later. I'm going to bed now. I'm tired. I actually worked today. I actually made some videos. Shit. All right. Good night, y'all.